Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I am your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams, Saints, LSU, Tulane. We even get into the Pelicans as they have started their training camp as well. To break it down, two of the best we have, two of the best in the state, again, in terms of, again, their knowledge of sports. Rene, Nadeau, CrestCitySports.com, and also Guerry Smith of the Wave Report, and also Noel.com, The Advocate, and the Times-Picayune. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming down this afternoon. We'll start with you, Rene. First of all, tell us a little bit about CrestCitySports.com, what you got going on, and of course, want to also talk about again a gentleman that's watching our program each and every week, right?
I want to say this: a great friend, a neighbor, Joe Steibing, is a little under the weather today. I know he's watching. He listens to you all the time. I want to say hi to Joe. He's going to be great, and we're pulling for you. And so I want to say hi to Joe and Millie, great neighbors. But anyway,
that's senior, right?
That's senior. That's Joey Steibing was the head coach at UNO. That's his son. But Joe and Millie are great friends and neighbors.
They raised a great son.
They did a great job.
They did a great job.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But anyway, Crest City Sports, college football, Saints, Pelicans, high school recruiting, a lot going on, and still do a lot with CBS Radio and WFAN and college football. So like you guys right now, football season, 365, 24/7.
Thanks for being here today. Gary, welcome back. Gary does double duty with me today on a Thursday. Gary's with us every single Thursday at 4:15 talking Tulane and again everything, because Gary can talk everything. And today again kind enough to do a double duty with us, radio and TV. Welcome back to the show, bud.
Thanks for having me on.
Tell us a little bit about your website and of course what you got going over at Noel.com, the Times-Picayune.
Sure. My website, thewavereport.com, Tulane.rivals.com. Anything that happens with Tulane football, you read it there. They this is the off week. They don't play till next Friday. Willie Fritz and two players talked Tuesday. Every single word they uttered. First place to find it was right up there with some analysis of what's going on. Obviously, Tulane plays maybe their biggest game of the year next Friday against Memphis, so it's a good time for them to have a bye week with rest. Then NOLA.com, I'm actually Sunday. Slade Nagel, Tulane's offensive coordinator, his wife Kirby donated a kidney in a three-way exchange to save the life of her aunt. I'm working on that story right now, and you can look for that on Sunday. Just a terrific story on that front.
Can I just hype this website for a moment? And again, I say this every week on the radio show. If you're a Tulane fan and you want to find out what's going on with your school, you want to find out what's going on with the WAVE when it comes to athletics, got to subscribe to the WAVE Report. It does a fantastic job in getting great information out to you every single day. So Tulane fans, WAVE Report, don't forget about it. All right, guys, let's get started. We'll start with the Saints and the debacle that was the 23-6 loss to the Bucks. They're now 2-2, 1-1 in the division. Worst game of the season, I thought. Again, regressing on all three levels. 197 yards of total offense for the Saints, and again, no explosive plays. Defensively, again, allowing Baker Mayfield to make time with his feet, almost looking like Mahomes at times. And again, just the inability to be able to, again, at that time, stop the Bucks. The big problem right now, obviously, is the ability to score the football. Touchdowns and in the red zone. This is an issue that really, Rene, goes back to last year as well. So, again, we thought that, again, with a healthy skill position players, Michael Thomas et al., with a new quarterback in Derek Carr, that we would start to see more points on the board, that, again, we wouldn't see the type of issues they're having in the red zone. And I got to be honest with you. Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Jimmy Graham, Shaheed, Olave, Johnson, Derek Carr. There should be no reason why they're struggling, again, when you have that much talent. Offensive line has been an issue, but they played much better last week than they maybe had done in previous weeks. Not that they played great, but they played much better. You've been doing this a long time. Red zone. Problems with, again, scoring touchdowns. What's the issue?
We could be here till Thursday in November. But I tell you, and something you touched on, and everybody's talking about the offensive line, but the offensive line by Pro Football Focus is rated 27th. They have allowed 15 sacks. Last year they gave up 38 sacks. And you don't think they're going to continue at this pace, but they could allow 64 sacks at this pace by the end of the season, which is unprecedented. It's crazy. Their offensive line, as I said, is 27th, ranked 27th in Pro Football Focus. They got 5 number 1 draft choices. You got Andres Pete and Ramczyk are 29 years old. I think both are at the tail end, and pretty certain that, questionable if they'll both be back next year. The scoring offense is 27th in the NFL. Derek Carr is the 25th best quarterback in the NFL, and the total offense is 23rd. The numbers are low, so it's easy to see why you can't produce any points and score in the red zone and be productive and stuff. Plus, just flipping over to the defense just for a second, they do not have a playmaker on defense, a guy who's going to change the complexion of things, somebody that the offense is going to have to game plan for. I mean, at one time you may say that Cam Jordan was that guy, but he's still a key piece to that defense, but he's not the person he was at one time. And you don't have anybody on, you say Marshawn Lattimore is a good cover guy, right? But you don't have a playmaker up front, in the front 7 or 5 or whatever you want to say. And that's a big thing in the NFL. Successful teams in the NFL who have good defenses have at least 1 or 2 guys who can game plan, you can game plan against, or change the complexion of a game with an interception, a sack, or a big play. And the Saints do not have that. So right now, they have people that could become that, but the offense has to get better. And Derek Carr's numbers, 123 yards. I know Guerry was at the game last week. It's something like that. I mean, is that right?
Yeah, it was his second lowest average per attempt in his long career. And look, I really don't even think Derek Carr should have been playing in that game. His shoulder wasn't healthy. That maybe wasn't the main reason. There was certainly one play where it was a huge factor. It was one of the most important plays of the game, where he missed Olave on the sideline and just short arm and just threw it short, landed in front of his feet, and he was demonstrably upset at himself. But Derek Carr was terrible in that game. There were times when he had time and just held on to the ball, which when you have a bad shoulder is the last thing you want to do, and he just didn't look confident out there. Didn't look, that was just you used the right word, debacle, when you started. That was just bad on every possible level in that game. And I said this last year a few times, then had to duck with the criticism I got, but everybody thought that Derek Carr was going to be the solution, and I'm not saying it was a bad deal bringing him in, but Pro Football Focus, which you mentioned earlier, they ranked Andy Dalton last year as the 13th most effective quarterback in the NFL. Saints fans think he was like the worst quarterback in the history of the league, that all of their problems went to him. Now, he certainly wasn't the answer, and I'll say the big difference between him and Derek Carr is Andy Dalton's content with where he is now. He's content to be a backup who comes in. Derek Carr still feels like he can be great and can lead a team to a championship, so I don't think it was a bad move bringing him in. But the fact is, Andy Dalton was a better quarterback than Derek Carr was last year when he was the Raiders, and we're seeing a lot of the Raiders play in him this year, and that's got to change. Now, maybe obviously the shoulder probably had some effect on Sunday, but that's a concern going forward because he's been poor.
Right. It did affect his accuracy. It did affect his velocity. And again, with the we hear this all the time. It can't get any worse. Well, again, how effective was he going to be? And then, of course, the mop-up duty with Jameis Winston, and again, that was almost an embarrassment to put him out there at the end right there. A lot of people pointing to Pete Carmichael. And again, that he's been the constant here, the denominator when you look at last year to this year, his ability to, again, put together a game plan. I think he does very well with scripted plays to start the game. Okay, but I think the problem that he has is readjusting to the adjustments that the defense makes. I'd like to get you guys' take on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that Pete has done a good job. He didn't also become a bad offensive coordinator, play caller. All of a sudden, from what we've said just previously too, the players are not making plays. Derek Carr and offensive line. I mean, it's tough to change the play calling, and all of a sudden, somebody's going to wave a magic wand, and the offense is going to be magic all over, like Drew Brees once again. If there's any good news coming, I'll tell you this: the Saints are averaging 17.7 points a game. The Patriots are 13.8. Right. So there's something maybe.
They scored 21 points this
year.
Yeah,
exactly. So maybe there's a good sign coming Sunday. But the thing is that. He hasn't become a bad play caller, and people have brought up Ronald Curry. Should he do it? That's something that Dennis Allen is going to have to address, and will it be a collaborative effort between Ronald Curry and Pete Carmichael? Don't know. But I'm going to tell you something else. I remember last year when Jameis Winston was taken, was the starting quarterback. I was talking to Bobby Abe and Mike Detillier in training camp, and I said over and under 5 games. I said Andy Dalton plays in at least 5 games. Well, he played more than 5. And I hope I'm wrong about this, but you can see that the Saints do not have a lot of confidence in Jameis Winston.
No,
they don't.
Dennis Allen does not have confidence.
Why did they keep him? This is the great mystery to me, because you keep a guy. Look, I've never been a Jameis Winston guy, but if he's on your roster and you've committed to him, why in the world do you not play him in a game where a guy has a sprained AC?
That tells you.
He's an experience. He's much. Like, I'm not a fan of his, but he's a better backup than most teams have. He has tons of starting experience. That's the game that you play him in, and it tells you all you need to know about where they think he is. That they didn't put him in until garbage time to basically kind of embarrass him.
I tell you what's going to happen, and I hope I'm wrong. I've been wrong before, more wrong than right. But I think before this season is over, you're going to see Jake Haener in there at some point.
Okay, let me answer your question. Salary cap, okay? Dead money that was going to be due, that again, that they didn't have to eat, and he came in on the cheap. Okay, that's the reason. That's the reason why they kept him. And again, he wanted to be here. There were no other options out there for him. So that's it. I agree with you. To me, all week long when they're saying he may play, Carr may play, and of course, Winston's getting the lion's share of the reps. I'm thinking, well, he's playing. And look, we've seen this with Brees as well. And Brees, everybody wants to compare Brees to Carr, and back then, the offense was created for Brees, and kind of grew with Brees and Peyton as they grew as quarterback and coach. This is a different situation here in New Orleans right now with Derek Carr. So if the guy can't go, if he can't throw with velocity, if he can't throw with accuracy, if he's seeing faux sackers coming at him, if he's not comfortable in the pocket normally, and now he's injured and not comfortable, you got to give the guy a chance to sit down and heal. And they didn't do it, and I thought it really hurt them on Sunday. So I believe that Dennis Allen last year after the Atlanta game, when he got injured, and I think it was the Tampa Bay game where he threw the 3 picks, had the fumble, ended up costing the game, where he said he was healthy enough to play and didn't play. I think at that point, Dennis Allen lost confidence in him because he felt like, again, he kind of let him down, and and then it became the Andy Dalton show from that point forward.
Yeah, and I think that, looking back on it, I kind of said this before, that it had been better served having Andy Dalton, a choice between the two. Keep Andy Dalton.
I thought they would, because like you said, it was clear they totally lost confidence in Jameis.
Totally.
They didn't trust him. So salary cap is fine, but Andy Dalton actually played okay last year, better than I would have expected him to play, considering all the things that were going on.
Right.
You mentioned Pete Carmichael. I usually defend him because the first guy that people always point to in any situation is the offensive coordinator, no matter what's going on. That's been true from time immemorial. He didn't have a good game in this game. Everybody was bad in this game. There was one play in the second half where they lined up in like 3 receivers on an I formation on the left side, one stack behind. I was like, this isn't going to go well. And then Carr's immediately under pressure. Nothing. He didn't do a good job. Nobody did a good job in that game. So this is one game where I think the criticism of him was justified.
Again, look, what I said this week on the radio show is pretty simple. You got to look at the body of work now, okay? Yeah. We've got a full season and another quarter. Okay, when you look at, again, the struggles on the offensive side of the ball, at some point you got to do some self-scouting here. You thought they were done in the off season. The question, and look, this is a much more talented offense than it was last year. Okay, guys are healthy. They pretty much lived on the big plays the first 2 wins, those explosive plays that really got them to victory. Other than that, again, the inability to run the ball consistently, inability to protect, and that's been a big issue for this team when we talk about the offensive line. And you mentioned Ryan Ramczyk. That's $35.3 million if they got to get out of the contract next year in dead money.
Well, he's got a rest day. He's got a rest day every Wednesday.
Right, and look, he is a shell of what he once was.
Oh, my goodness.
He's not even close to what he once was. Again, he's getting guys that are bull rushing him now. We never saw that, okay? And then you got Penning on the other side, who has played better last week.
Yes,
he really did.
A little bit better.
You move Max Garcia in because of the concussion to Pete now. I thought Garcia and Hurst played better as a tandem at the guards last week. Maybe that's the way they go. And McCoy has struggled. So it's really been across the board. Ruiz, Pate, and now you've got a quarterback in Carr who doesn't have a comfort level behind that offensive line. He's seeing ghost.
He is, and that's one area. They are more talented offensively, but they're worse on the offensive line, and it's hard to coordinate through that problem when you're having the problems. Trevor Penning's performance is a little bit encouraging. A couple of weeks there, he was a disaster out there, and he's no longer that. But like you said, the other guys aren't. The line as a whole is worse than it was last year, and if that doesn't change, there's no real solution to what's going on here.
The defense, and look, last week, look, they've been a pretty good tackling team in the beginning so far this season, but last week blown assignments, missed tackles, they were undisciplined. Now they had some guys in that were coming in for guys that were injured, but for the most part, the front set, the first 2 levels were intact, and they let Baker Mayfield. Really, the fourth quarter of the Green Bay game with Love, and then kind of morphing into, again, all 4 quarters against Green Bay, allowing the quarterback to make time with his feet, and that's going to spell doom every single Sunday.
And I thought, and I'm not blaming him, but Pete Werner is a guy who can run, and he's a guy that can account for a quarterback. And I'm not saying it was his responsibility, but I was surprised that Baker Mayfield was elusive as he was and was free as he was, and the guy. Kalen Saunders and Shepard have done a good job.
I thought they have.
They've done a good job. And Bresee, it looks like he's got a future.
Yeah, he's
right. I agree with that.
Cam Jordan is not bad, but he's leveled off. And Grandison has taken a step up. Grandison has gotten better.
Agreed.
But there's nobody behind those guys. And Davenport's gone, and Peyton Turner. Who knows? But I mean, the thing is that, again, I'm not going to, there's no playmakers on that team to come up with a big play, a forced fumble or interception, or just make a play that's going to excite the defense and everything else. And we haven't seen that yet.
The game turned on one drive. The Saints were up 3-0 in a game that was putting everybody to sleep. and they had 3rd and 5, I think, from midfield. Carr went deep. Maybe that was the play call. Maybe it was his decision. Wasn't complete. But then they punted him deep, and they drove 87 yards on a touch. They converted a 3rd and 8, another 3rd and 8, a 3rd and 7, and a 3rd and goal on the 4. The defense to his point, could not make a play. That's 4 chances they had to keep them to keep the Bucs from taking the lead, and they couldn't do it, and that was concerning too, because we did not see a whole lot of that earlier in the year. Now, they haven't had many injuries, but I will say it seems like Isaac Yiadom is involved in a lot of big plays, and it's not a good thing. When Isaac Yiadom, he's actually made some good plays during the year, but he's being forced into a pretty pivotal role here, and that's not what they wanted.
Sure,
going
they're
into the year.
targeting him. There's no doubt they're
Yeah.
going after him. A lot of people have complained about, and I don't want to call it prevent defense, but the soft zone coverages, not being aggressive man to man, dropping in. We saw it in game 1, we saw it in game 2, where they allowed teams just to go up. Tennessee and Carolina go up and down the field on them at the end. Again, it came back to bite them against Green Bay, and again, once again, not the aggressiveness that we see man to man, and then of course the ability to be able to rush the passer. What are your thoughts on that? Are the fans wrong when they come out and they're criticizing them going into almost a prevent or a soft type zone?
Well, the thing is that Paulson Adebo's it's not been 100%.
True.
Okay, Alontae Taylor has really stepped it up a lot, and Marshawn Lattimore is what he is. The safeties are not. Marcus May has obviously missed some time, and the Honey Badger's back there, and that safety position is not a strong suit of the Saints right now. Keep in mind too that the wide receivers in the NFL they had to make plays too, and even sometimes in tight coverage, a lot of receivers the Saints have faced have made some just good catches. Right. I mean, you forget that the other guys trying to make plays too.
Great point.
And they've made some good throws against the Saints and some good catches. I can't say that Marshawn Lattimore, Alontae Taylor, or Yadam is even because he's been thrown into the mix a little bit, but it's a situation of that they've been playing guys that have made plays in tight situations, in tight coverage,
right.
And not all the time. But it's not always a prevent defense. It's just sometimes that the combination on the opposing team has just made a nice hookup, a nice throw, a nice catch, and beat the coverage.
But if you're going to allow some escapability with the quarterback and you're going to play soft, he's going to find the holes in the defense. We saw Love do that. We saw Mayfield do that. It's an issue.
And I'll tell you, here's the concern. At the end of the third quarter against Green Bay, the Saints are looking to go 3-0. They're up.
Right.
They've just early in the fourth quarter. They've just come off the field with a 4th down stop, up 17-0. What happened after that, I think, is going to maybe affect this team the rest of the year, because you don't blow 17-0 leads against Jordan Love at quarterback. And he's right. He and his receivers did make some plays in that fourth quarter, but the Saints defense didn't make any plays after for the first 11 quarters of the year being pretty solid. And go back, Dennis Allen's career record now as a head coach is 17-40. They were about to go 3-0. They lose that game. They said all the right things in the locker room that it wasn't going to affect them, but it affected them. Right. They when you blow a game like that and you were in a good position and now you're having to come back from that. And we saw they played an abysmal game against Tampa's result. And I'm concerned on that front, just in terms of their confidence as a team. Another game blown. They blew a couple like that last year too. And the feeling of here we go again.
Renee, I want to go back to what you said about lack of playmakers on defense, because again, is it age? Because Jordan was once again a great playmaker. Demario Davis on the 2nd level, Tyrann Mathieu, Marshawn Lattimore on the 3rd level. Is it age catching up to this defense?
For the time beats everybody, buddy. And I think it is. I mean, I think in some cases,
offensive line as well. In some cases, guys are getting old before their time, really.
I mean, and I'm not picking on them, but to be honest, Tyrann Mathieu and Cam Jordan are not the players they once were. And I'm not saying he's on a decline either, but Demario Davis may not be. He may be a step or two slower than he was. The offensive line, it's just for the time, has caught up to the Saints a little bit, and it's now time that it's not if they change, it's when they change.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, the problem has always been, again, with the salary cap, and you got a lot of money tied up in that offensive line. It's going to be very difficult to get out of those contracts. If it is, you got a lot of dead money coming in. You got dead money with Pete this year. You decide to get out of the contract with Ramczyk. Same situation. Then you got to draft an offensive tackle, because you don't have anybody. Landon Young's not going to be your offensive tackle here again. So you got an issue there. You are who you are. Okay. By my calculations, Dennis Allen is 9-12 as a Saints head coach. Again, they're 2-2 in this first quarter. I hear coaches say all the time, you can't panic. We're not panicking. It's only the first quarter. But you look at the body of work, and you look at the same issues they were having last season that is now again creeping up as you get into the second quarter of this season. Now, They're on the road against New England, on the road against Houston. Maybe they can get healthy there and get a couple wins. But the issues that have persisted with this team to last year are still having right now. Inability to be able to protect the passer, inability to be able to score in the red zone, putting up field goals instead of touchdowns. And again, they've gotten more turnovers early in the season, but they're not able to, again, at least the last couple of weeks, consistently stop an offense. What are you looking for as we turn the page from the first quarter to the second quarter for the Saints?
Well, you know, we said that Derek Carr is the 25th rated passer in the NFL. Mac Jones, who he faces this week, is the 15th. And people are talking about Bryce Young may be a bit of a disappointment. C.J. Stroud is not.
Right.
C.J. Stroud is having a good season in Houston, and they're looking at him as being the savior over there. So the next 2 weeks are not definite W's.
Right.
I mean, the Saints are going to have to. The defense is going to play very well, and that offense, because of Mac Jones and because of C.J. Stroud, I think that both of those teams are going to put up points. So the Saints are going to have to match that, and you know. Field goals is not going to win the next 2 weeks. If the Saints cannot score at least a couple of touchdowns in each of the next 2 games,
right.
You're going to look at a team that's 2-4.
Right.
I honestly think they need to win both of them
I do
for
too.
their confidence. Again, I think this is a fragile football team right now. When you blow a 17-0 lead and then throw a complete stinker the next week at home, they're not in a good headspace right now, regardless of what they say. They need to go to New England. I don't care what Matt Jones' stats are. Their offense has been brutal so far this year. This should be a good matchup for the Saints, but the way they don't score, every game's tough. And I mean, Houston just beat Pittsburgh 30-6. So the Saints haven't played a game like that this year. So, but the Saints need to find a way to win these 2 games and get to 4-2. I know it's a weak division, and 9-8 may win it again.
Right.
We don't know. Not if Tampa Bay keeps playing like they did on Sunday, but just for confidence' sake, they need to string something together here.
I don't anticipate Tampa Bay playing like they did on Sunday.
Yeah.
When you look at this team, from week 1 and 2 to week 3 and 4, look like a championship defense and like a shell of itself. As we you know, we know the offensive problems. As we wrap up the Saints, what happened with? Is it adjustments being made by the opposing teams? Seeing the scouting report, is it just them not playing well? Are the injuries on the back end again? Are they causing that many issues right now? That again, this team looked pretty good defensively the first 2 weeks, but the last 2 weeks, really since the fourth quarter of the Green Bay game, they haven't looked like they had the first few games.
Well, you know, one thing I agree with what Guerry said. That Green Bay game, that second half was a gut punch.
Right.
And you may say, well, they've recovered from that. Boy, I tell you what, that was a shock to that. I think that locker room, I wasn't in there, obviously, but they had to be walking with the eyes this big after they lost to Green Bay. Also, the inconsistency. You got offensive line guys. Again, they're the 27th ranked offensive line in the NFL. You don't know guys are getting hurt and moving in. You got a different 5 quintet every week. There's no consistency, and that offensive line has to play like 5 fingers.
That's right.
And it's not happening. And you got a new guy every week, and I mean,
and your quarterback's got to trust that offensive line.
And that's right. And they got to play together. And it's playing, you know, and they say, well, they practice. Man, playing and practicing in a game is 2 different things.
Right.
When the bullets are flying live. I think that in some cases, too, I think Father Time is caught up with some of the guys who are the key figures.
Yes.
The leaders. They can still be leaders. I think if you want that locker room and you listen to the Saints players talk, they feel confident that they can get this. They won't even look at it as a turnaround. Like, we know what we have to do. This is the work we need to do. We got X amount of games left. We got 13 games left. This is what we need to do, and we think we can get it done. But I think what you say and what happens is 2 different things, and I think that this is not a team that you had when Drew Brees was here, when they had the kind of weapons and stuff, that is capable of overcoming. I mean, you know, like a defense, if the offense, or the opposing offense scores a touchdown, this defense will come right back. I don't think they have the players or as a team talented enough to overcome miscues anymore.
You have the final word.
Yeah, again, I go back. Dennis Allen's career coaching record, his record with the Saints, they're going to have to buck history. He's going to have to buck history. He's going to have to be a great coach. He's going to have to get these guys. Teams firmly reflect their head coach.
True.
People are complaining about the offense, and certainly Pete Carmichael deserves some criticism there. But a lot of times it goes back to the head coach.
Right.
And this team, I think when Green Bay went for 2, and at the time I was like, what are you doing? And made it, I think everybody on the sideline realized, oh, we might lose this game, and not even on Sunday. So they've got to show some mental toughness, and Dennis Allen has to show some leadership to get these guys back to where they want to be.
Well, the good news is that Debo may be back this week. He was limited in practice yesterday. We'll see what happens today. It looks like Foster Moreau may be back. So again, you're getting some guys back from injury. Again, May still another 2 games left on his suspension. Say before you get him back. And look, this is it's getting late early. Okay, it's getting late early. Okay, so I mean, again, from how we felt the first 2 weeks about this team, where again they were explosive plays and getting victories, and the defense is playing well. To again, since the 4th quarter of that Green Bay game, it hasn't been the same team. We'll see how that works out. When we come back, we'll start off with Tulane. Again, normally you say LSU. We're starting off with Tulane. Tulane playing really good football right now. They have a bye week this week, really one of their toughest games coming up with Memphis. Then we'll get into the debacle that was the Ole Miss LSU game, and then we'll finish off with Pelicans. Joining us on the program today, Guerry Smith of Wave Report, and also NOLA.com, and Rene Nadeau of CrescentCitySports.com. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We're here for my underwriters. We'll be right back.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Acadian Custom Shutters is locally owned and operated, specializing in interior and exterior shutters and window coverings, as well as awnings and patio covers. Acadian Custom Shutters offers American products with personal service and workmanship, serving the South Shore, North Shore, and Mississippi Gulf Coast. More information is available at 985-893-3119 or AcadianCustomShutters.com.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest today, Guerry Smith, and also Rene Nadeau. Tulane, 35-23 over UAB in a game that, again, I don't think anybody going into this game thought UAB would be as close or give Tulane what they gave them. Despite that, Tulane gets the win, 4-1, 1-0 in the conference. Really the biggest game of the year coming up next Friday night against Memphis in Memphis. Memphis seems to be, again, the biggest obstacle to Tulane, again, rolling through, again, the American Athletic Conference. Guerry Smith covers the Wave for the Times-Picayune and also his website, the Wave Report. Were you surprised by again, how well UAB played? I mean, we knew they had good skill position players.
I mean, I thought UAB was better than their record had been. I mean, this is a team that's been to bowl games consistently over the years. Now, Trent Dilfer became head coach. He has no college experience at all. I think that set them back at the beginning of the year. But yeah, I was surprised because this was a game Tulane actually could have lost. There was 3.5 minutes left in the game. Tulane converts a 4th down, tight end bobbles the pass. He's wide open. If he drops that ball, it's UAB ball at the 40-yard line, down 5 with 3 minutes left, and they've been moving the ball pretty well. Once that happened, it was pretty well in control, and then Tulane threw an absolutely gorgeous touchdown pass on 4th down in the final minute to seal it. But yeah, it was a little closer, and I don't feel like Tulane's been playing great in the last few weeks, but they're doing what, if you want to be a championship team, you have to do. You have to win games like that. And when they were down 20-7, there was a lot of nervous fans, and they touchdown right before the half, touchdown 3 plays into the second half, and they were ahead the rest of the way. And there have been some inconsistencies. Michael Pratt isn't totally healthy at quarterback. That's been a factor. But here's where Tulane, they bring it every week. Their defensive line is SEC caliber, and good SEC caliber, and I didn't think I'd ever see that day. I mean, I'm talking about better half of the SEC caliber. They have, in in 5 games had 40 tackles for loss. That's an insane total. In fact, last year, Tulane went 12-2, had a really good defense. They had 62 tackles. They're on pace for 112 this year, and it's 8 guys. It's like Noah's Ark at every position. 2 guys, doesn't matter who's in, they're just making plays. Devin Deal, who's people are wondering, why is he starting over Darius Hodges? He had 4 tackles for loss in this game. That's why he's starting. But Darius Hodges came in and had a sack. They're rotating guys in play after play, and it's an advantage Tulane's going to have on everybody they play for the rest of the year.
I got to be honest with you, I'm impressed with all 3 levels of the defense. You and I talked before the season, losing, again, 2 great linebackers. When we talk about Grubbs, Small, again, they lose Platt early. Again, Machado, they played well. You talk about the defensive line. And one of the more impressive things has been the secondary. We knew they were good corners. You and I talked about it on Thursday. The safeties have played well.
They've tackled, and LSU can take lessons on how Tulane is tackling at safety. Both of their starting safeties, who had no starting experience before in their college careers, Bailey Despaney and DJ Douglas. DJ Douglas is an incredible tackler. I mean,
former Alabama player, right?
He's a walk-on at Alabama, and he earned very little playing time, but a little, and they wanted him to stay, but they weren't going to give him a scholarship, so he came to Tulane, spent a couple of years as a backup. Wasn't that impressive in the limited time he played, but as a starter this year, he's really stepped it up. No, their defense is better this year than it was last year, and that's saying a heck of a lot when you lose 2 linebackers like Dorian Williams and Nick Anderson. They're a little banged up at linebacker. That's a little bit of a concern. Tyler Grubbs played 1 series against UAB, and Willie Fritz watched him and said, "Nah, you got it. You can't play." And so Small, the LSU transfer, and Jesus Machado played every down for the last 3 quarters, and they can't afford another injury though with Tyler Grubbs, because they don't have any confidence in other guys. No, their defense has just been outstanding through 5 games.
Let's talk offense for a moment. Again, concerned a little bit about Pratt and the knee. Again, I said I hold my breath when he starts to run now. Okay, and I think he had 9 carries for 33 yards last week. But the overall offense, I was so glad to hear Willie Fritz say this week that Hughes is his #1 back. It's like I'm pulling my hair out here. He's the guy. Put him on the field. Again, I thought that Barnes played well until he fumbled the football, and then of course you had some issues there. But to me, he's the best back on the team.
Willie Fritz is a great coach. I have no idea. I have no idea why this guy wasn't starting earlier in the year, because he's been there. I put the numbers up. Going into this game, he had the same number of yards as the other 4 scholarship backs did combined, and yet he hadn't started a game all year. Obviously, there was something going on. Like in the first game, he missed a blitz pickup, and Michael Pratt got crushed. I think maybe missed assignments that we don't see necessarily on plays, because if you just take ability and what they did during games, he was the clear #1, and he was terrific. Just every play. Like Willie Fritz said, he falls forward. He gains an extra 3 yards, because if he's hit at the line of scrimmage, he gains 3 yards. If he gets hit 9 yards down the field, he gains 12 yards. And it was huge, because they had not run well at all. I mean, no Willie Fritz team in his entire tenure at Tulane has not. They've all been effective running before Tyjae Spears. He was a transcendent player, but they were good running before him.
Of course.
They weren't running well at all in the first 4 games, and to have that kind of breakout performance was huge. And Mekhi Hughes, he will start. Unless something really goes wrong, he's their starter for the rest of the year.
And Yuki Brown was a find this week.
It was a very creative game plan. Tulane 6 jet sweeps in the game. Well, 1 reverse and 5 jet sweeps. Every one of them picked up at least 6 yards, and that's huge, because 3 different receivers. They can run them left and right. They can run them from the shotgun and under center, so they're not predictable on that. And Yuki Brown, he went to. He was a huge recruit. Went to Texas A&M. Like most of the huge recruits that went to Texas A&M, didn't do much. Came back to Tulane, had a slow start to the year. He ran around. It looked like everybody was in slow motion when he ran on the first touchdown on the jet sweep for 15 yards. Jaquan Jackson's really good in that role. Lawrence Keys is really good in that role. They've got really talented receivers. This is by far their best receiving core under Willie Fritz, and it was good to find they found another way to use those guys against UAB.
Rene, your thoughts?
And Guerry knows this better than me, but tackles for loss, they got, I think, 17 sacks, 7 interceptions. Wow, that's a lot. And I mean, I think opposing opposition has had 12 red zone opportunities and 6 touchdowns. and special teams has been punt returns, kickoff returns have been great.
Yes.
But you know the thing is, and Guerry talked, and y'all talked about Mekhi Hughes and Celestine and Clayton Johnson and Shedra Lewis and Arnold Barnes. I mean, you got 5 guys, and they all do something a little different.
Yes.
And a couple of things, you know, and you talked about maybe missing a blitz pickup. It's little things that is not obvious to the naked eye, you know, and haven't been a running back in my time. You know, sometimes it's you know, they give a running back an option route or something. You know, he may go out in the flat, or he may, depending on the linebacker, cornerback's playing, he may go up the field. And a bad decision by a running back sometimes will cost you a big play. And example, if a running back, I'm just going to use Mekhi Hughes' example. If in a play he has a chance to go up the field or go this way, and he goes the wrong way, that's going to be pointed out to him on the sidelines, like next time you have a chance. But you can't miss opportunities. You have to be, besides being a good runner, you have to be a good receiver, a good blocker, and make good decisions. Also, because of the offense, the wide receivers are helping those running backs because they've opened up the games. Keys and Jaquan Johnson and Brazil, I mean, those guys, they have made such big plays downfield. It's opened things up a little bit and made the defense more cognizant of guarding those receivers, and it's loosened up the offense, loosened up the defense a little bit, and you know, and maybe gave those guys opportunities to run. Because the defense won't play as close to the line of scrimmage and stuff, because those wide receivers are keeping the defensive honest. Michael Pratt is having a good, you know, is exceptional, but Kai Horton, when he's come in, it goes to show that I wouldn't say it's not much drop off, but he's a guy that, you know, when you put the ball in his hands, he's going to make good decisions.
He can win for you.
Yeah, and he's going to win for you, and he's not going to be, the offense is not going to have to take a step back. He's going to make big plays, and against Ole Miss, he made some exceptional plays. I mean, he made plays that even if Pratt would have been in there, it wouldn't have been any difference. He made some big-time plays, big-time throws against Ole Miss.
So huge one coming up here.
Yeah.
This is talk about it. This is really the biggest one of the season.
I'm not sure how good Memphis is, but they're always talented, and the Liberty Bowl has been a house of horrors for Willie Fritz. There's no other way to put it. 3 times he's gone up there. Now, 2 years ago, Tajay ran all over him in the last game of the year, and neither team was very good. I'm not counting that one. But 2019, Tulane was 1 spot out of the top 25. They were only like a 3-point underdog. I picked Tulane to win. A lot of national people were picking Tulane to win, and Memphis just annihilated them. Scored basically every time they had the ball, sent Tulane into a tailspin, because Willie Fritz talks about he felt like he could have done this earlier. Things didn't go their right way. That game really hurt them that year. But yeah, the huge litmus test. See what Tulane can do. Memphis, they gave Missouri very similar to Tulane in terms of what their performance is. They're 4-1. Their 1 loss is to a ranked top 25 SEC team. They lost to Missouri and St. Louis, and they were ahead for part of that game. I think they outgained Missouri in that game and didn't get it done. They were able to come back and beat Boise State this last week. It'll be a good test. Where Tulane has fallen against Memphis in the past is Memphis's speed at receiver was just too much. Tulane used to play a lot more man in the secondary, and you could just Memphis would take advantage of it. You'd find some safety trailing a guy across the field for a 60-yard touchdown. I don't think that's going to be a problem anymore, but they have to prove it next Friday. And if Tulane wins that, they're set. I can't imagine a scenario where if they beat Memphis that they're not going.
Like again, this is the biggest obstacle. We talked about Texas San Antonio at the beginning of the season. They don't look to be the same team. Now they could be again. They may again get it together before the end of the season. This looks like the big one here. Look, normally I don't like bye weeks here, but again, for Pratt, another week to heal. You get a week to really prepare, almost 2 weeks to prepare for Memphis. I think it's the perfect time for a bye week for Tulane.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes, you know, you like people think, well, maybe the bye week should come in the middle of the season. In this case, you need it now. And this did fall just right for them. And you know, Grubbs, with Grubbs being hurt, that's another one.
That's another one, right.
So I mean, you need some guys that need to bumps and bruises to heal up a little bit, and the offensive line for Tulane has done an exceptional job. I mean, they have really. To say Haynesworth is, I mean, he's definitely going to be a finalist. He'll be up there for the Remington Award.
And you mentioned holding your breath every time Pratt runs. He had a 26-yard run against UAB, and he came up hobbled on that, but it was his other knee. It wasn't the good knee, and that's the deal when you have a bad knee. And he has not been anywhere close to 100%. He's just an incredibly tough guy, and it'll be. I'm not sure he will be totally 100%, but he'll certainly be in a lot better shape next Friday than he has been the last 2 weeks.
Remitich went out out in the game. Is he going to be all right?
He should be fine.
Okay.
I'm not 100% certain on that, but
Yeah.
I think he should be okay. Yeah.
Look, I said this on the show all week long. I'll say it when you come on this afternoon.
Yeah.
They win this game, there's no holding them out the top 25. I know there are other receiving votes right now, but you look at, again, 5-1, only losing to an Ole Miss team that has moved up the polls now. It would be very hard-pressed to keep this team out. And I think they're the best of the group of 5.
Yeah, and look, people want to rank them. They're respected. I mean, they were ranked in the top 25 this year while losing a ton of players from usually. If you lose, usually Tulane in the past, if they'd had a really good year and they lost to Tyjae Spears and their top 5 tacklers, which they did, nobody would have talked about them as a top 25 team. So I agree. And I don't necessarily think they deserve to be ranked yet because the teams they played have been awful. It just South Alabama was supposed to be a good win in the first year and the first game. They're 2-3. Southern Miss has just been abjectly pitiful since the Tulane game. So if you just go by results, they shouldn't be ranked. But I agree. If they beat Memphis, I think we'll see them back in the top 25.
Your thoughts on the rest of the season?
I thought the game to circle was UTSA.
Yeah, me too.
And Frank Harris, now he's been kind of on the shelf and not. So this is the game here. And you hate to say that, I'm sure Willie Fitz is not saying, we win this game, we got the rest. There's other teams. A UAB could sneak up on you.
Oh, yeah.
And bite you.
It's on this week.
Yes.
No doubt. All right. All right, here we go, guys. LSU again loses to Ole Miss, 55-49. They're 3-2, 2-1 in the SEC. They've dropped to 23rd in the AP and the coaches poll. 706 yards, given up the most in school history on the defensive side of the ball. Championship offense. Jaden Daniels, his maturation process has been nothing more than miraculous. You talk about the ability to throw the football downfield accurately. He's now again patient in the pocket, uses his legs when he needs to use his legs to run. Again, has a command of the offense, a leader. I mean, Rene, I saw him again playing again at his previous stop. It was Arizona State. I thought he was an okay quarterback. I saw him last year. I thought I saw some really good things, especially with his legs. He's made leaps and bounds in this offseason where he is right now. I mean, I don't know how he's not in the conversation about the Heisman. Honestly.
Well, I'm going to tell you, and I've said this on the show, and I've said this before, and again, I don't know everything, but I'm going to tell you what Jaden Daniels has reminded me of throughout this season and previously. He reminds me of Lamar Jackson at the same stage.
Okay.
And you say, no, he does. Okay. Lamar Jackson got to be a better quarterback as he went to the NFL, but Jaden Daniels does a lot of stuff. He's the best quarterback in the SEC. He's the 3rd best in the country. Without him, LSU's a whole different team. Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas are 2nd and 4th in the in the SEC in receiving collectively to have 1,160 something yards. Everything's because of Jaden Daniels. And I mean, the offense is clicking along, and you're right. It's a shame that. Will it cost him if it wins and losses in the Heisman? Yeah, it could. And I'm not making excuses. And Guerry was talking about how Tulane lost a lot of people. And you got to just fill in those blanks and come up. LSU lost. And it's not an excuse, but LSU lost 462 tackles that left the team after 2022. 18 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. I mean, they lost a lot of experience. I mean, B.J. Ojolari, Ali Gain, they've lost guys. And the guys who've taken the spots, Savion Jones is he's not having a great year, but they're not having a go-through. The guys who took their places are not having the same year of the guys they replaced. I think too that, and Pete Jenkins is going to help out as a consultant on the defensive line. You couldn't have a better person, who knows the technique and X and O's than Pete Jenkins. I think that I'm going to point out Omar Spates. He had 380 tackles during his time in Oregon State. He didn't all of a sudden become a bad player. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think that there's way too much on players' plates. I think that Greg Penn, he had 80-something tackles last year. I think there's too much thinking now.
It's too complicated, the system?
It's a little complicated. Now, you may say, it's not found the ball, tackle the ball. It's responsibilities where you have to be and things like that.
Well, you saw a lot of blown coverages this past weekend.
I'll tell you what, I'm not going to make excuses. There were a lot of missed tackles, and that's just on the player's part. That's on their part.
And bad angles.
Tackles, Tackles and blocking is the same exact thing. You got to want to do it.
Right.
Okay. You got to want to bring the guy down more than he's got to run. And blocking a guy is nothing more than just wanting it. So tackle is on the players. But I think that they are put in some cases, the guys are being put in positions that maybe they're not capable of handling. They may have to, I don't want to say simple it down a little bit. They have enough talent. I'm telling you, they have enough talent because a lot of guys on defense, on this bad defense right now, is going to be playing in the NFL in the next 2 years.
But that's what we thought, right? I mean, again, you got Mason Smith coming back. You talk about, again, Wingo. The Wingo was, again, these guys were All-Americans or again, were thought to be All-Americans, right? You look at Perkins. I mean, you go to we knew the secondary was going to have issues. And again, I saw House and Kelly this week maybe bringing in guys like Welch and Stamps and some of these young players, because I guess they felt at the point saying, we might as well play the young guys now because at some point they're going to need experience and we just get to live and die with it. But you always felt like the first two levels of the defense would be able to make up for what was going on in the back end, and they just have not consistently done it.
And the transfers they've brought in, I mean, like Denver Harris, for example, who's supposed to be the best thing since sliced bread, and he's been a big disappointment. And they're playing guys like Ashton Stamps and Welch and all because they have to.
Right.
They have to.
They have to.
And I mean, I tell you what, I'm not saying it because of him, but losing Greg Brooks was huge.
Yes.
Not only as a player, but as a leader back there. And he was, and you look back over his career at LSU and even Arkansas, he was a playmaker. Yeah. He came up with a big play, an interception, and things like that. And not having him back there, somebody's got to step up. And sometimes you don't say a guy who's a 3-year. You got to have leadership skills. And Guerry knows this, being around sports. You just, you got to have the right guy that pick up an offense or defense because he's got skills on the wall or he just comes up with a big play. And right now they lacking because Harold Perkins was misused, as you will, in the first game, and they had to change his what he had to do. So they're still tweaking some things, but that Ole Miss game was a debacle. I mean,
it was. I mean, you can't give up 7 or 6 yards in a game. And also, look, Wes Weeks coming in, playing well at the linebacker position for him. At some point, Kelly's got to say, I got to go with my young players and just let them get some experience here, and he's doing that. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, the most concerning thing for me is it at times looked like lack of effort, and look, these guys care. Yeah. When you have lack of effort, it's to his point, it's paralysis by now. They're thinking too much. They're not reacting. But I covered the Ole Miss Tulane game. Ole Miss couldn't run a lick in that game. Judkins, his longest run in that game was 12 yards. They had a 20-yard run by the quarterback. They barely averaged 3 yards a carry. Alabama game, second half, they had 9 first downs and 3 points. This is going into the LSU game. And then they just ran right through them, over 350 yards. They're running like little option plays, which aren't even part of their offense, and LSU has no idea what to do, making the wrong decisions on who to get. Judkins ran wild. That is not. Experience is a factor, of course. Leadership is a factor, of course. But that was a debacle in every way, and they're not that bad. It's absurd how poorly they played, and they're wasting. Jaden Daniels has just been transcendent this year. Look, because I write about Tulane, I have a lot of Tulane fans on my Twitter feed, X feed, whatever it's called now, and after the first half of the FSU game, they're talking about he's overrated, all this BS. He was dropping dimes against Ole Miss. Maybe 3 of the 4 of the prettiest passes you're ever going to see. He's transcendent, and they're blowing it if they don't figure out. The defense doesn't even have to be good. It just can't be inept.
It can't be the Saints 3-7-9 seasons, right?
And and I talk about the Saints having confidence issues. I mean, obviously the defense. Arkansas really hurt them the week before. Arkansas is not a particularly good team. They've got to get it figured out because their offense is so good. They still have a chance to recover, but they've got to figure it out on defense.
And before a lot of people think, well, LSU's going to go up to Missouri. Let me tell you, Brady Cook is the 4th best passer in the SEC. Okay, Cody Schrader is a 5'9", 215-pound running back. He's averaging almost 6 yards a carry. He's the 2nd best runner in the SEC. And guess who the number one, you think about Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, Luther Burden is the number 1 receiver in the SEC. He's got 644-yard catches. He's not a big guy. He's 5'11", 208. But he's the number 1 receiver in the SEC. So I'm saying LSU is going to be facing a high-powered offense when they go to Missouri.
11 a.m. kickoff as well.
Missouri's a lot better than Arkansas, and LSU struggled with them. So, I
want to ask this question for both of you here. Okay, I talked about it on the radio show the other day. Do fans have to pump the brakes a bit? When you go back to the last year of Ogeron, all the defections to the NFL, transfer portal, having to start over with Kelly, again, well, now just a second recruiting class, trying to be able to fill holes with the transfer portal. Last year, maybe a little ahead of schedule. Do fans have to pump the brakes here a bit and maybe lower their expectations?
Well, you could say that about the Saints and LSU.
Okay.
And I know we talked about the Saints. But they need to pump the brakes with the black and gold and with LSU as well. And you know, I thought this last year when Brian Kelly did what he did last year, I'm like, oh my goodness, he's way ahead of schedule. Right. And you would have thought he'd have a season like this last year rather than the season he had. And I think LSU's still going to wind up having a really good season. I mean, Ole Miss game is something, but I think they're capable because of the talent they have. And I think it's kind of a tweak situation that, you know, the players going to have to step up. But yeah, they do have to pump the brakes, and all is not lost. I know fans are saying, well, LSU will not win another game.
That's a little bit.
I would say, I think the coaches, I think they thought they were going to have a championship team this year. So I agree. Look, Brian Kelly has a track record. This guy's won, and he's won more than his predecessors and his successors, which is usually a sign of a really good coach. But I don't think they saw this coming either. And I didn't. By the way, Andre Sam is their second leading tackler. He was at Tulane spring practice. He transferred from Marshall. Tulane doesn't even miss him. He's their second leading tackler. So that may tell you something right there.
Guys, got about 2 minutes left. I'm going to give you each about a minute. Are the Pels, as they stand today, a playoff team?
Yes. And I think that, you know, everybody's healthy right now. The only thing that I got out of media day, Trey Murphy, you're going to miss Trey Murphy a lot. But look for Juwan Hawkins. Okay. I think he's a sharpshooter. That's the guy they drafted out of UConn. And I think they're going to give him a long, hard look because he could fill somewhat what Trey Murphy brought to the table. You're not going to fill everything because he was a really exceptional player and a starting kind of guy.
He struggled a little bit in the summer league. Hopefully, again, he'll get over that hump.
Yeah, they're a playoff team. Look, at the end of the year, obviously, Zion wasn't there, but C.J. McCollum wasn't there even though he was playing. This is a guy who was trying to play through a thumb that was making him an ineffective player, and he had a torn labrum, and he played through it. So two of their three key guys basically weren't there when they lost to Oklahoma City in the play. I mean, in terms of effectiveness, in terms of playoffs. Are they a championship team? That totally determines on Zion doing something that he's never done in his career. But a playoff team, yes, they're a playoff team.
Is this a defining season for this regime if they don't make the playoffs?
Whew, you're talking about top to bottom. There's a lot on David Griffin. He's, you know, he's made some changes in the physical therapy with Aaron Nelson not being anymore. So they're leading you to believe that we have changed things for the better, and this is what we needed. And how many more mulligans are you allowed?
Right, that's my point.
Yes.
It's a very important year. They need to do something. They need to make the playoffs, and they need to do something in the playoffs.
I think it's an important year for the organization as a whole. I mean, and I've mentioned this on this program, the radio show. When the commissioner comes out and says you got a substandard arena, and you got a situation where you got a first-term governor coming in, and you haven't won, you know, the legislature and the governor's going to look favorable on putting up money for a new arena. So again, I know they want to get through the dome first, and they're going to start concentrating on the arena. But I think that, again, that you've got to start stringing some winning seasons and get people excited about Pelicans basketball, not just here, but around the state, again, for the long-term health of this organization here in New Orleans.
And they said they talked about they don't mind going over the luxury tax. We'll see if that happens.
No doubt. Guerry Smith, Rene Nadeau, absolutely fantastic job. Thanks so much for joining us today on the program.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there are so many ways to catch our program now. The QR code on your screen that'll take you either to my website or the WLAE-TV YouTube channel. And of course, set your DVR for your favorite time slot and you'll never miss the show. Catch me on the radio, 106.1 FM. That is weekdays 4 to 6. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn Radio app, or our digital platforms. Spotify, Apple is where you can catch the podcast. Search Inside New Orleans Show with Eric Asher, and you'll find that. And of course, we post this program and our radio show on all of our social media platforms. So again, join the conversation there as well. I want to thank again Rene Nadeau and also Guerry Smith for joining us on today's program. The fine folks here at WLAE-TV do a great job in producing our program each and every week. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Logan Graffia, also again Alex Chacon, and the best director in the business, William Hill. For Rene Nadeau and Guerry Smith, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.